You're listening to the Joe Kamo Show. Real sports, real talk.
All right, welcome to the show, Pat Mayo. What's happening, man?
Yeah, I'm busy man these days, as I know you are, but I'm happy to jump on.
Excited to have you on, the legendary Pat Mayo. I remember when I first met you, I first saw you. You didn't know I existed. It was before I got into my Instagram. It was a fantasy football convention. You were setting up a booth. You were pretty nice. I came up to you. I was really green to the industry, but you were already well established. So you've been at this for a long time with fantasy football analysis. For the people that don't know you, well, people in the fantasy industry should know you, but the people that don't, can you just let us know kind of what you do, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I host the daily Pat Mayo Experience, presented by DraftKings, obviously. That's where I'm at now. I helped launch the first ever 24/7 fantasy football television channel. I don't know if that exists anymore. I left ages ago. But like you said, I've been doing this for, over 10 years now, from writing to podcasting into video. And I've kind of found a niche in video. And that's really where I rest at this point. And I do football and golf now, as golf is kind of taken off for me. I started doing football and baseball, then I gave up baseball to do golf, but golf has been very good to me so far. And people seem to enjoy tuning into that. It's hard to balance sometimes to stay on top of two things at once. I've seen a lot of people in the industry, because the standard used to be baseball and football were by far the biggest. So you did both of them and they kind of coincided. The end of baseball season, everyone kind of gave up on because football was starting. But that's what you do. You do football season, that would immediately go into baseball season. And those would be your two things. So because of daily fantasy, because of legalized betting, or depending on where you are, all of these other sports, which would have been so much smaller in like season-long fantasy, have really become elevated, whether it's basketball or golf or MMA or NASCAR even, that there's really been a lot of growth in these sports, which is really encouraging to see.
Yeah, so you're actually called the Pat Mayo Experience. Is this like a new thing? Was it just the Pat Mayo Show, or has it always been the experience? Because you've added more elements to the brand, right?
Well, I just launched the Mayo Media Network about 3 months ago. So that's a YouTube channel everyone can go check out. It's a video and audio network. Right. So I have my show up there that comes out every day, the Dogger Pass podcast, which is a UFC daily fantasy and betting show, plus a lot of short interstitials with just people I like who have time to contribute from around the industry. So we have some like daily showdown type stuff for football, some MMA like quick hits. Eventually, I'd like to expand it to touch on every sport, but for now we're sticking with what we know best.
So golf, do you actually play golf? I kind of want to get your feeling in regards to golf. Do you play it, or do you just more of a watcher?
I'm now more of a watcher. I grew up playing golf, unfortunately. I mean, you and I live in the same part of the world. Yep. So at times, it's a bit too cold to go play golf, but I'm actually in downtown Toronto, and I release a show every day. It doesn't leave you a whole lot of time to go play golf at this point. And the prices in the city are ridiculous. Yeah. I'm from the East Coast of Canada. So when I grew up in Halifax, there was a ton of golf. It was cheap to play. So between the ages of 10 and 20, I played, every second day during the summer. Once I started doing this full time, I probably get out for like 3-4 rounds a year now.
Toronto is just too crowded for me. So if you guys don't know, geographically, he's in the Toronto area. I'm more towards Niagara Falls. Okay. So I'm more in the Hamilton region there. So it's kind of in between Niagara Falls and Toronto geographically. If you still don't know where that is, it's kind of near Buffalo. Okay. So Buffalo, New York. So a lot of people, you'd be surprised. I've been in the States. They have no idea what the CN Tower is. They have no idea what's going on. And we're not that far off. Like, we're close to Buffalo. So yeah, it gets really cold, and I hate this time of year. I like Christmas time, but I hate it when it starts getting cold, dark at 4:30. I just hate that. But do you kind of have the same experience this time of season where you're like, I kind of hate it getting dark after the Christmas hump? You feel better, right?
A little bit. And then the stress of the content schedule of football where it's every day. So right. Like Sunday, I'm recording. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, all recording multiple shows during those days. Saturday, I just kind of stick at home, do some writing. If something breaks, I'll come in to the studio and shoot something. But once, the new year hits, the same demand isn't quite there for all of the content. So I can condense my schedule a little bit more. It's a bit more relaxing. But these 4 months, as you know, are just an absolute grind.
hibernation. But what I was trying to lead to is that it's so busy in Toronto. It's just crazy, man. Like if I'm going to be in a busy city, I'd rather be in LA because at least you get it sunny, it's beautiful. But in Toronto, it's just like I try to avoid Toronto traffic, downtown Toronto. How do you live in such a congested area? Are you just used to it at this point?
Yeah, I moved here about 10 years ago when I ended up going, or actually more than 10 years ago now, when I went to broadcasting school. So I moved from here to New York, and I was in New York for a year and a half. Then I moved back to Toronto to launch that TV company. And just I don't really go many places, so it's not like I'm adventuring around Toronto. I live within like 2 miles. My studio is 2 miles from my house. I can walk there if I really need to. So it's about a 10-minute drive away because of traffic. It's a lot closer than that in actuality. I could probably walk here in half an hour, and it takes me 10 minutes to drive. Then you got to pay for parking.
Yes.
I'm actively looking to get out of the city at this point because when I first started, I had to be here. Like when I went to broadcasting school and wanted to work in sports, I mean, from a very like narrow Canadian point of view, like I was involved in fantasy sports already. I was writing columns and that's all I was really doing. I started my own site. I got picked up by other places. So I was in the fantasy space when I went to broadcasting school, but I thought I'd host like Sports Center or work at TSN or something like that. Best case scenario, you go to TSN for 5, 6, 7 years, you do well there. Eventually you get on air. Maybe ESPN gives you a look, but just the industry has changed so much over the past 10 years that's not even on the radar at this point. That much like you, I was able to go and do my own thing, and that just works out much better. I can pick my own hours. I can release whatever I want. I can fucking swear on my show just like I can on yours. It's great. Like, and because of the rise of digital, like, I had a show on TV for ages, and just more people watch it on the internet than they ever watch it on TV.
Yeah, and that's what I like about you. I like that freestyle and just do what you kind of do, entrepreneurial spirit. And that's kind of what this show is about. I want to talk to people, interview people, have discussions with people that have, overcome adversities, just kind of, created their own path. Now I had a UFC fighter, top 11 fighter on. I had an actor on. I think everybody's kind of on their own journey. And I couldn't personally work for anybody. We talked about it. You just talked about ESPN, all these companies. If they came and said, Joe, here's $5 million a year, I might take it just for the year, cash in the 5 million, and then just, done for a year, conform for 1 year. But I just can't conform to like a contract. You got to say this, you got to do that, a production team. And we've seen so many successes, Gary Vaynerchuk, all these other guys, Joe Rogan, that have done it on their own. That's the path I'm taking in the sports industry. I can't work for somebody. There's no way in hell I could do it.
I don't. It depends on who you end up working for. I find like I've had some really great bosses and worked at some awesome places, and then conversely, it's been the opposite in some places. Like I'm in a partnership with DraftKings now, and it's going to go on to 6 years at this point. I just love working with them. Like they're really hands off. They came to me because they enjoy the show, they enjoy my product, and thought that we would be a good partner. And they don't tell me to do things. Like if they want me to inform people about things that are going on at DraftKings, like that's fine. Like that's a part of the show. I don't mind doing that. But if it was like, hey, Pat, here's what you say every day and here's what you do, then it would be completely off the rails. I'm much like you. I would not take well to that. But fortunately, I found a good partner and a good business associate to go do that with. So I think if you pick your partners well, you can do it. And when you kind of harken back to the ESPN thing, like I think that there is real value in stuff like that, because where the industry is so fractured right now, and it's every industry, that because of digital pockets that kind of pop up, like you have such a huge presence on Instagram, and you're probably, I think you must have the most followers of anyone like in the fantasy industry on Instagram, and that can push to your podcast. Like that's a really big platform. I have a pretty big Twitter following, but if I was on ESPN for like even a year, their reach would help my reach, which then I could take back after you left. So I think that trying to find ways to get yourself out in front of a lot of people is really difficult right now. And still those legacy brands have those viewership, have those eyeballs. The default is to go to them right away from a lot of people, especially a lot of casual people. It's the more hardcores that end up finding the online people to go and traffic with. But I do think there is real value in the exposure that those places can give you.
For sure. It's just piggyback, leveraging that. We've seen other people do that where they had a reality show and that reality show propelled them. But then you have a lot of people falling off. It's just a matter of maintaining that momentum after you're on such a big platform and keeping and building. I think there's a couple other guys that have done it in the fantasy industry that have taken, their kind of exposure from ESPN and then catapulted them into the podcasting. But I think there's a shift going. I really do. And I feel that guys like us, I think it'll eventually be inevitable that we do take over. Now, they still have the muscle, they still have the capital, they still have the funds, they still have the production. But I think the organic aspect of things will eventually take over. And I think people are done with the cookie cutter stuff. There's still people following it. It's great. It serves a purpose. And I think there's a spot for, the white collar, cookie cutter stuff, what I call cookie cutter and sheepsist compared to what I do. And I think there's a home for both, but I think it's just whatever you gravitate to. There's a lot of people, I'm polarizing. So there's a lot of people that like me. And there's probably a lot more people that hate me. I don't care. I'm delivering content, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease type thing.
Well, I think that's actually a better position to be in. That I'm very much the same way. Like, there's a lot of people who really dislike me, and not just dislike me. They dislike my content. They dislike the attitude and the type of show that I present. It's, very, you and I are too dissimilar in that regard. I think we have opinions, and we're going to back up our opinions. And I'm wrong. I am wrong all the time. That's okay. Like, no one comes to me and be like, well, Pat, I didn't win $1 million this week on DraftKings. Your picks were so bad. It's like, people kind of realize the game when we go into it, at least with my show, that some people don't like an argumentative show. Some people like shows where people just agree with each other and don't want to throw out hot takes. I've always tried to gear my content around the stuff that I like to listen to. And I like when people fight on podcasts. I like when people fight on TV shows.
Yeah.
Whether they mean it or not, I still find it highly entertaining.
I find you not as pushy as, I'm not the word pushy, not as brash as me, I would say. But I think you totally line nicely. I think you're witty. I think you're really good. I think you're real, but I don't think you're kind of over the top, and I don't see how people can dislike what you do. What is it that they dislike? You said everyone's got haters, but what is it particularly they like? I don't like, you're a likable guy. I don't see what they would hate. Just maybe an opinion or something that they didn't like that week.
I think it really, there's always that part of it too. You've just, when you're wrong and you go out on a limb and you're wrong and people have followed you, those people are going to hate you for life. That's just part of the game. That's just what comes along with it. I just think that there's a lot of diversity within my show, as in each of the shows is completely different depending on the guests that I have. So I have 2 or 3 shows every week that are less informative, more entertaining, and they can be somewhat mean-spirited sometimes towards the other people on the show. And a lot of people don't like that. Some people love it. Other people really hate it. And like I said, that's kind of the place that you want to be in. If everyone just kind of doesn't have an opinion on you, especially not being on an ESPN or a CBS or something like that. If you have your own niche and you're online and you need people to find you, you need people to really like you and people to really hate you. And then people start talking about you, and that word of mouth is how you become discovered.
They've talked about me a lot on Twitter, especially the mainstream. I'm not going to name any names, but I've had it out with a few of them, and I just don't say anything on Twitter. But what really gets me is a lot of people don't sit down and get to know me and know that I'm a family guy. I've got 2 kids. I'm really a genuinely good guy, except part of it's a performance, right? So when I come on and say a player sucks, it's a performance. Yet they talk about me, say, oh, Joe said this, Joe said that. But yeah, part of it's real. It's passion. And I really hate it when a player, runs out of bounds when they're running towards the goal line. They run out of bounds and screw you out of 6 fantasy points. I really hate that. But a lot of these other mainstream analysts, and maybe it's jealousy, maybe it's just they don't like me, maybe they just think I'm an asshole. I don't care. But they talk about me, but they don't really know that this is, my career. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm out here grinding, blood, sweat, and tears. I'm doing it all on my own. Like, I don't have it. Now, I don't expect a handout, but it's just, they don't really know me. But the fans that really know me understand, and they appreciate, and those are the loyal fans. Those are the people that I really want listening. You know what I mean?
No, I completely understand that. And I think a part of it too is like, when I find your Instagram account to be highly entertaining. I really enjoy it, but it's all, you really do stick to the brand. Like, you're being the fantasy football counselor, you're on there, you're talking about football 24/7, 365. You don't really allow the outside world into your personal life as much like I do. Like, my Instagram account is really a non-football Instagram account. It's more of a personal one. It's like me, my wife, my kids, and my Twitter account is more football related. So I think I've taken that path a little bit differently. And even in my shows, it's not always 100% football. Even if we're talking about football that day, it could kind of be anything. We're going to touch on the football. We're going to get down to the stuff that matters, but then we're also going to spend half an hour just fucking around and talking about whatever.
The problem is, like, I like that you're putting the kids' photos up. It's family. It shows that you're a likable person. That's a good thing. I tried doing that, but it's 1 or 2 haters that ruined it. And I'm like, I asked my wife, I'm like, should I post this with the kid? Cause I was doing jujitsu with my son. He's only 1 year old. He was passing, much about, MMA. So he's probably right. So he's passing my guard and he's like, just over a year old. So I put that up there and I'm not going to repeat what comments there were. And it was just like people just bashing my son. He's a 1 year old son and you're insulting my son. And it was absolutely fucking disgusting. So after that, I decided, you know what, I've kind of put my daughter in my story mode a little bit, just saying, hey, what's up, Grace? And we say hi. And it's just like the negative, there's one or two people ruin it and it bothers, like not really, like, I don't care what that person says, but it's the fact that it's out there and I don't want my kids to have any of that negative feedback. And again, I'm such a, I don't know, outspoken character that I have those haters and they speak and it's kind of annoying. So I just stopped doing it,
No, I completely get that. So it happens. It doesn't happen with me. I think that you attract some of that hate when it comes down to it because of the personality that you have and just the opinions that you have as it pertains to football. And some people just can't separate, fantasy football from real life. And that's tough. And just, I'd be with you. I wouldn't put it out there either. People are more generous towards me in that regard. But I do think that if I would to bring it up on the show, or even if I was to put it on Twitter versus Instagram, it does feel like my Instagram audience is a lot different than my Twitter audience. Right. I mean, there's a lot of crossover, but the people that would come and rail me would come and do it on Twitter versus doing it on Instagram to me.
The keyboard warrior bullshit is crazy. Now, again, I keep referencing Joe Rogan because I'm a big fan of his and I watch his show. And he talks about how people on Twitter are basically like out of control. So, for example, fantasy community, like, again, I would post something like this player sucks and that player, we'll talk about this too, because I get a lot of players that come back and respond to you've probably seen Le'Veon Bell guys. When I say something about them on social, they come back in my comments, dive in. So then one Twitter analyst, fantasy analyst will post something and other analysts that I've never heard of will just dive in and say stuff like, screw you, Joe's an asshole, blah, blah. It's like, you haven't met me. You don't know me. And I've had an altercation where there was this one podcast, there was a smaller podcast. There was 3 of them. And I won't say the name of the podcast, but they were smaller. They were up. I don't even know if they're still around, but they started hating me on Twitter. When I met them at a convention, they kind of put their tail between their legs and I'm like, hey guys, what's up? And then it's like, oh shit, Joe's actually, he's a nice guy. Nobody talks like that, but that's why I hate Twitter, man. It's like, it's just too much. It's like you hate somebody, you don't even know them, but if you met them in real life, you probably wouldn't have that conversation, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's no different than like the Instagram. I assume the comments underneath like some of the videos and takes, like it can turn in. There's some really great people in there, and it generally just becomes a cesspool of everything. I've found that like cultivating a decent Twitter audience, the mute button is everyone's favorite friend at this point. Just if they want to be pieces of shit, then you just mute them. You never have to hear from them again, because if you just wade down that pool of just all of the negativity, you're just going to focus on that. So either removing yourself from the situation or just actively not seeking it out. Well, it's tough to do. If you can force yourself to do it, it leads to a much better experience.
Now I want to talk about the 80s here because I can't get my eyes off the background there. And it gets your mind going. I'm an 80s baby. I'm assuming you are too. I see Macho Man over there. I'm actually getting a guy on the show probably next week. He's supposed to come on this week. He basically impersonates Macho Man. Now I had the Mr. T guy on earlier. Very fascinating that these guys lead lives that, replicate Macho Man's. It's crazy, but was Macho Man your favorite wrestler? Can we talk a little bit about the 80s? I see what is that? Mario Kart back there. Like I grew up playing GoldenEye. I just want to talk about 80s and 90s. Wasn't it a great time to be alive, honestly?
It seemed like it was a much simpler time to be alive, but I was also a kid, so I had no idea.
Yeah.
Macho Man was not my favorite. I mean, growing up, I loved Bret Hart. I mean, we're both Canadian. Who didn't love Bret Hart?
Loved him.
In Canada, at least.
Yeah. Excellence of execution. He was one of the greatest, man.
So I went from Bret Hart into Chris Jericho, and then I kind of aged out of wrestling.
Mine was Hulk Hogan. Just growing up, I grew up Hogan. I saw him slam Andre, and that was it, man. I was hooked, and I liked the Warrior, even though he wasn't a technical wrestler. I enjoyed watching him. Are you still in the gaming too, or no? Video games?
No, I just, everyone's all about the PS5 now since it just came out, and I don't think I've owned a system since PS2. I had a 64 and then a PS2. So college was the last time that I had a gaming
So
system.
what do you do for your downtime? Because I want to talk a little bit about burning out. Like, what do you do on your because to me, sometimes it gets to a point where, because I love what I do. If I didn't love what I do, there's no way in hell I could do this. But there is times where I'm like, oh shit, man, like I got to edit another video, or I got to do another video, and oh shit, like I get kind of burnt out, and it's just like I need a release. So I'm actually getting back into PS5. Like I haven't played a video game for years. It reignited my senses and my passion for gaming. What do you do in your spare time to kind of unwind?
Nothing really. That's a real problem with me. And now because of like lockdown, you can't go do anything. So it's funny that the pandemic hit and like the quarantine and lockdown and just the restrictions that are going on hit at this particular time, just because generally speaking, like my wife and I used to go out like once a week, once every 2 weeks. We'd go have a nice dinner. We'd go to a movie, something like that. That would be a lot of fun. And it's hard to do during football season just because there's the absolute grind. But, in the middle of May, if it's a non-major week for golf, I can sneak out for a day or two. We used to go to Montreal twice, between April and August just to get away for a weekend. So stuff like that, but can't do that anymore.
Right.
But it hit at the same time where football and golf were kind of in full swing since the beginning of June on content wise. And I'm doing the shows every day. And, like you, between me and my team of myself and my producer, we're constantly grinding out graphics and editing and trying to come up with new show ideas. But also my wife and we introduced our second son in May. So he's just actually turned 6 months old. So we have 2 kids under 20 months. That keeps us rather occupied, and it keeps us indoors because we can't really go anywhere. We don't have family up here. They're all on the East Coast. So it's really just been us, especially during the first few months when like daycares and schools were still shut down, is that we literally didn't have time to do anything else because we'd be taking care of the kids all day because they were home, and we'd be absolutely fucking gassed at night.
Yeah.
Like I started going, I felt like my grandfather. I was going to bed at like 9:30 in the night.
Well, congrats on the baby for sure. But being a father, like I have a 3-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old son. And it's like, I'm not one of those guys that buys in the whole media hype. I'm concerned about the pandemic, but I'm not like overly scared about it. But the thing is, when I try to like go to a park, I do want to sanitize the swing that the child's on, because this is the weird thing. You go to a grocery store, you have like the security guard. You go to Walmart, you have the security guard, you have the people there, they're sanitizing the carts. You got to wear masks. You got to do this. You got to do that. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't walk in here. You got to be 6 feet away. But how do you even, control parks, right? Like, so you have all these kids there running around, hands on their nose, blowing their nose. Their parents don't care. So like, I don't even want to take them to public parks really, because how is that safe? It's crazy. I don't know.
Yeah, we try to go to the unpopulated parks around our area. So if like there's no one really there, or it's a giant soccer field or something like that, and there's like 3 other families there with kids running around, you kind of pick your corner, you stay in your corner, and then you go home. Fortunately for us, that's not really going to be that big of a deal now because it's starting to turn cold.
Yeah, it's starting to turn cold, so we're not going to be going out. And at home, I've actually created a home gym now because I had a gym membership, but then again, I don't want to work out at a gym with a mask on. I don't. I'm having trouble breathing as it is while I'm working out. Then you put a mask on my face, I'm screwed. Like I'm done. Maybe it'll help my cardio, but so I ended up investing a lot in some boxing equipment, which you've probably seen on my Instagram. I'm boxing a lot. My basement, calling out Le'Veon Bell. So it's like I'm doing stuff at home. Do you have a home gym? Do you try to keep everything at home yourself?
Yeah, so when this first started and the gym shut down, I ended up buying I went to Canadian Tire and got the last of all their weights. So I just got a bunch of dumbbells with a bunch of weights, and then I bought a bench. Unfortunately, this was before our son was born. When our son was born, we just eventually ran out of room because, like I mentioned, living in downtown Toronto, not a bunch of space at my place. So it's actually just off camera here to my right now. I got the workout bench at the office, so I tried to do that here. I did go back to the gym though, because herein lies the problem. Because I generally work out 5-6 days a week. That's really my release. If I film 2 shows in one day, I'll film one at 10:30 a.m. I'll go to the gym for an hour, and then I'll film one like an hour after I come back. And that's been a real problem because the gym shut down. But I actually tore my calf muscle about 6 weeks ago. So normally, I would get my cardio by running outside. I'd go for a 5-mile run outside when the weather was nice, but I can't do that anymore. So the only cardio I can do is elliptical or bike or stuff like that. And I don't want to go and spend $2,000 on an elliptical or buy a Peloton or anything like that. So the gyms have reopened, but it's really hard to get a spot. They only allow 10 people in at a time where we're at right now. So I actually went back 2 days ago to use the elliptical just to try to test out my calf to see how it's been, because I've been trying to do physio and rehabilitate it. And that's just a very low stress type thing in order to do. But I had to wear the mask the entire time. I'm not going to lie to you. Wearing the mask while you're doing cardio feels like triple the workout.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it, man, because I have trouble grocery shopping with it. Never mind actually working out with it. So,
So you're still going to the we just get groceries delivered. Just go on the app, be like, boom, 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 and just send it my way. I'll wipe them off when they get here.
is there like a delivery cost for that? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a delivery cost, but I mean, how much is your time worth to go stand in a line in the cold at the grocery store? It takes like an hour to go do stuff now. And like, there's a whole bunch, and maybe it's located primarily. Like, you can get groceries off Uber Eats through the app in Toronto now, but there are just a bunch of different places. You kind of scan through it, you pick what you want, and they have like a personal shopper that goes in for you. I think the charge is like $20 in order to pay the guy. You can tip him afterwards, obviously, if you want, but it's more expensive, but you don't have to go to the grocery store.
Well, the problem I had with that, and just thinking logically with it, it's just like when I go, I'm very selective. Okay, I pick that parsley, I want to make sure that parsley's clean. If I pick an apple, I don't want any dents in the apple. If I pick that package of, I don't know, toilet paper, I don't want any holes in the toilet paper that maybe someone, like, I'm very picky with the product I select. I usually reach in the back, grab the back pack of cookies that hasn't been like, is the quality of the stuff coming in good, like when they deliver it?
I'd say like 95% of it is. Like, they're not just taking the first thing that they find. They do check it to make sure that it's not horrible. The problem that you run into, and like, they're there with you. So if they don't have the product that you want, they'll shoot you a text like, hey, they don't have this. Do you want like an equivalent, or do you just want me to take it off the order? So you can kind of figure it out that way. But when it comes to produce, like, you can still, like, I find that the produce markets for fruits and vegetables are still relatively unpopulated. Just some of the local ones, whether you go to like the end of the street or go to a farmer's market or something like that. So we still mainly do that for fruits and vegetables. It's more like the hard thing, like, hey, I need some ground beef. Can you just pick me up a pack of ground beef and just make sure it's not expired, basically? And then you can freeze it when you get home. So just more things that they can't really screw up. And then you can leave the rest to yourself and just go somewhere else to go get it. But there are certain things that you only can really get at the grocery store instead of going to like 5 different places. And I started doing the meal delivery stuff. It's not bad. We don't do it every week. We do it like every 3rd week, but it's just nice to have for some diversity in meals, because whether you're ordering out all the time because of the pandemic, or you're not getting going to the grocery store as often, you can kind of fall into a trap of eating the same thing all the time, whether it's healthy or whether it's unhealthy. And like, I find that just kind of leads to, it's kind of a downer.
Right. The only thing we order in is going to UFC. By the way, do you watch UFC at all or no?
I don't. My producer's the one who hosts the show. I've kind of branched off from the UFC. It's a lot to pay attention to. I know you're big into it. Those guys are big into it. Like I said, Saturday's like kind of my off day, so I can't be getting into something else that solely exists on my one day off.
I had lost my passion because I did fighting, and then I don't know what happened to me. I just lost my passion for watching mixed martial arts. But about a year ago, I really got back into it. So every Saturday, even my wife, who'd never watched UFC, I got her into watching it every weekend with me. I love the female fighters. I think they're probably some of the most entertaining fighters. And then you've got the male fighters. I mean, you've got the best of the best gladiators going at it every week on UFC. There's a pay-per-view event this weekend. I mean, it's just exciting to watch. So I ended up ordering wings that day, once a month when we order the pay-per-view. That's pretty much the only ordering we do in. But I really, really enjoy mixed martial arts, man. It's just one thing that, because I don't watch basketball as much. I just find basketball is a little soft for me now. I don't know. I'm just more of a testosterone, I don't know what it is, man. I just like those high energy sports. And, I don't like LeBron getting slapped and falling 5 feet after the slap. I'm just kind of over that. Do you enjoy basketball still?
Yeah, I mean, I enjoy basketball the same way I enjoy baseball. I'm just fans of that stuff now. Like, when you start working, like when I covered baseball full time, I was watching baseball every night. Then I got really burnt out of baseball. It doesn't happen to me with football. Although I don't watch the Monday night game anymore. I record it and condense it down in the morning to do the film review of it. But just like, you have to give something up at some point. Like, I don't watch college football at all anymore.
I don't either.
Like, when it comes to draft stuff and like who to take, I'll just have experts on who cover the stuff full time, and I'll just trust their opinion on it. Like, that's why I'm having them on, is to tell me about it. So And where I do golf, I mean, golf lasts 4 days. Golf's on right now. So I have to tangentially pay attention to that on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and continue to track it over the 9 hours that it's on. I assume you don't like golf if you don't like soft sports.
You know what? I actually like play. I think it's peaceful when you go out. I go out once or twice a year. I find it very peaceful. I like the greenery. I like jumping in the cart for the first couple of holes. Then I get kind of annoyed with it because I suck, and I'm more in the woods more than anything than on the fairway. I used to like playing video games, golf. I just can't watch it. I just can't get into it. I think it's kind of slow for me to watch, but you obviously enjoy watching it. Like, what is it about it you enjoy watching? I mean, literally, you can say that about any sport, but literally, you're hitting a ball down the field and chasing it. I mean, you can say that about any sport. Well, Joe, you're bouncing a ball, you're putting it into a net, right? But what is it how do you maintain the patience of watching golf?
Well, golf has the potential to be the best TV sport, to be the fastest TV sport. That's just not how they cover it. So they cover it. I mean, primarily the demographic of people that watch golf is like 55 plus.
Right.
So it's slower. There's more like, oh, let's watch this guy. He's going to go up and he's going to read the green, and we're going to be very quiet. And he's going to look at it from this angle. And we're watching this guy for like 8 fucking minutes trying to hit his putt. Whereas there's 156 guys on this course. If you really wanted to, you could show, here's a shot, here's a shot, here's a shot, here's a shot. And it'd be like, you'd be like, oh shit, there's a ton going on here. Because there is a lot going. Yeah, you could basically create I've been trying to pitch this idea to the PGA Tour for ages. Just let me host the Green Zone.
Yes.
As it turns out, golf is the best fantasy sport and it is the best gambling sport. It is the most fun to bet on, to play DraftKings. It is the most fun. It is the most bang for your buck too. It is set up the most like football. I mean, football, we know, is the best fantasy sport. It happens once a week. You gear yourself up. Everything's going on at once, and then it's over. But it's a very quick lasting thing. Golf does last the 4 days, but you have, the tournament ends on Sunday. The pricing's out on the odds are out on Monday. The DraftKings pricing is out on Monday. So you have Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday to do your research, to gear yourself up, to talk about it. Oh, I want to play this guy. I don't want to play this guy. And then it starts, and then you have all of Wednesday on Tuesday, or all of Thursday, sorry. And if Thursday doesn't go great, well, you got Friday to make a comeback. You have that cut sweat. And if you get your guys through, then you have Saturday and Sunday. So you get 4 days for the same dollar that you do for 7 hours on Sunday for football. And obviously the prize pools aren't as large, but in terms of the gambling market, like you can put money on someone at 100 to 1 to win, and they could win. Like that happens all the time. Whereas in football, you need to severely increase your bankroll because basically you're just betting coin flips every week.
But do you think the problem is the announcing? Because it's kind of boring. When I think of golf announcement, I'm thinking, oh, the wind is moving this way in this direction. Shh, as he's ready for the putts. Like, do you think if it had somebody that was interesting like yourself doing the commentating, that it would bring more people in?
I don't necessarily know if it's the commenting, because that goes part and parcel with the actual broadcast. That's how CBS in general wants to broadcast their product. Like, instead of showing live shots, they'll throw to a vignette about this golfer's dad and how he got into golf. Like, I just want to see shots. Show me as many shots as possible, because I have my app open the entire time and they're tracking it in real time. Just like, all right. He's 8 feet away. I need to see if this guy makes the putt. If he doesn't make the putt, I'm screwed for this week. Right. And they'll just never show him. And if there was a way to kind of patch into that and almost create, the Red Zone channel is a fantasy feed that was created for fantasy football. So you could pay attention to everything that's going on at once if you don't have 9 screens and have all the games on. Eventually there will be something like that for golf. The one good thing about the PGA Tour with Jay Monahan, their commissioner, when he ended up coming in, is he's really embraced it. Like, they've signed the partnership with DraftKings. So that's the official daily fantasy provider. They've done gambling deals now with DraftKings and other places. And they actually have a content arm that's covering the gambling side of it. So I would have to think that it doesn't need to be the CBS broadcast that changes. This could be an online only thing. Like, these people who are betting on it are placing their bets online. They're not going to the brick and mortar and putting down their $50 on Tiger Woods. They're just going on their app. Then they're following it on their app. If you made it a streaming only type thing, an on-demand type thing, hell, make it a pay service. I'd pay $5 a week for it. I'd pay $20 a week for it. Then that way you can cover the hard costs. People would tune into that if they could watch all the players that they would want to watch. And then it becomes infinitely more entertaining because you actually have stake in it.
Do you think that, I just find that I think Tiger Woods really popularized it like in the late 90s, early 2000s, but I don't I don't follow golf at all, but I don't find that there's a name anymore like that. Is that true that there isn't is there a big personality in golf right now? McIlroy or whatever his name was, is he even big? I don't even know. There's no Woods anymore.
Well, Well, I mean, it's still Tiger. Tiger is still the biggest draw. Whenever he gets a sniff of contention, like the ratings go through the roof because Tiger's involved. But right now, no. Bryson is probably the closest because he's polarizing. People either really like Bryson or they really hate Bryson, and like we were talking about. That's a great spot to be in because during Masters Week, all anyone talked about was Bryson DeChambeau. They weren't even talking about Tiger. Tiger and Bryson were even talking about it. That Tiger said, like, I haven't seen anything like this since me, that people are so enamored with what this one guy is doing. And where Tiger was so popular, Tiger and Phil at that time, really, that everyone wanted Tiger to succeed. But it was everyone wanted to succeed. He had haters, but it was very few and far between. People were pumped when Tiger Woods did well. With Bryson, there's more haters than there are like positive supporters for him. So people like are rooting against him the entire time, but people will tune in to that. So that's a really interesting spot to be in where he's such a big personality. But I do think that instead of having a Tiger Woods to bring in ratings and people to have interest in golf, I do think that gambling will really elevate the space of golf. And make it more popularized in that way. Just like I said, it's very fun to bet on. It's very easy to track. And for the daily game, for fantasy, it is set up the most like football, like fantasy baseball, fantasy basketball. It's really hard to track because it happens every single day. Right. I need to make this lineup move. Guys are sitting out 4 minutes before game time, and now I need to go adjust my lineups. Like the hardcores are going to love that, and there's money to be made doing it. But for casual fans, that's not fun at all.
Yeah, you need to bring in a younger crowd to the golf, but you need a draw. I think you just need a draw, and I don't think there's enough draws in right now to get me going or a 20-year-old going into golf. I don't know.
Well, you say that, but like the weekend broadcast on CBS, like I said, the demographic is around 55 years old. On Golf Channel on Thursday and Friday, when no one's really paying attention, the demographic used to be 55-ish years old. And over the past 3 years, basically since DraftKings started offering fantasy golf games, the average age for that demographic watching Thursday and Friday, which are the most important days, realistically, to your fantasy golf team, dropped to like 45. So there's a lot of younger people tuning in the first 2 days to track their fantasy lineups that just aren't translating over to the weekend because, people are out of it and they don't care anymore.
Yeah. Do you find that like with the way the technology is with our phones now and like everybody wanting a quick response and short attention spans that they are gravitating more towards football? I mean, I don't know what the statistic was. I think it was the finals. I think it was the Lakers final. I don't follow it, but I think LeBron's game where there was the finals, more people watched, I think, was it a football game or something over that finals game or something like that. Like just nobody's watching it as much now. I don't know.
The ratings for every sport are down except the NFL. I mean, and the NFL is king. We know that. Yeah. That's the reason that we do football over the other sports. That's what brings the people in. That's the moneymaker. That's the cash cow. And I love watching football. But again, like when you have one Thursday night game, everyone's going to watch that. When you have one Monday night game, everyone's going to watch it. The highest rated show on TV, regardless of scripted reality, whatever it might be, is Sunday Night Football. The Super Bowl is the most watched thing of the year. Like and that's what happened with basketball. It's like they don't go head to head with football ever in the most important times of the year. Like the finals has never gone head to head with football. And we saw what happened when it does. I mean, that's like even the Masters ratings were down 51% this year because it went up against football Sunday. People are going to watch football over watching the Masters, but there's also different ways that they can't track things. Like the Masters app this year was amazing. You could live stream any player you wanted on the Masters app. Like anyone who was under the age of 40 and has a grasp of technology just streamed it off the app, and they don't account for the ratings. So I don't think it's quite as dire as a lot of people think, where football, where it kind of spans out, like you have your fantasy people, they're tuning into Red Zone and they're tracking a lot of things through their app. You still have this older audience, which is just larger, that gets overemphasized in the Nielsen ratings because Nielsen ratings still calls people on their landlines to get rating information. That's how they track this stuff. Who has landlines? Old people.
If I was me, again, if I owned baseball, could you change it and lower the 160 plus games? And then also, I just think a 7-game series in anything, whether it be hockey, basketball, baseball, is drawn out. I find I end up tuning in when a team is facing elimination. If it's like 3-2, like that's when I tune in. I don't tune into game one, like, because you're not really going to get that outcome. Wouldn't you say if you're a baseball guy now, are the ratings good with baseball? And do you think that it would be better if they lowered and brought down the season a little bit, less games?
I think that baseball's popularity would potentially go back up in terms of like an overall number if there were fewer games.
Yeah.
But baseball is one of the most profitable sports locally. It's become a very regionalized sport over a national sport. So just consider the Blue Jays and the money maker that the Blue Jays are for Rogers. Rogers owns the team. They
Right.
own the stadium. They own the TV channel, which broadcasts the games, and they own all the telecommunications, where if you ever wanted to stream it on your phone or your computer, they own all of that too. They own all of the rights. The Blue Jays make so much money for Rogers, and it's not just them. It's any sort of localized things that 162 games, you think, what, 3 to 3.5 hours per game.
Right.
For them, that's almost 500 hours of content that they don't need to fill on their TV networks with anything else. They can sell ads on those games. They all draw. If you put a show on after it or a show on before it, they're both going to rate way higher than anything else too. Is that it's such a valuable property locally. Like the Red Sox are a national team, but they're so huge in Boston that when NESN runs them, their ratings go through the roof locally. And that's all that really matters because you can sell off of that. So I think that baseball will never come off the 162 games because that television property and how much time that it actually fills on the airwaves are so valuable.
Good point. I never thought of that. I'm just thinking, let's make life easier and people get bored. Because I tried.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Like it's killing the game overall in terms of the public, like national conversation. And where football is really the only national sport at this point. I mean, basketball to a certain extent, because basketball is so popular between the ages of 18 and 34, and it traffics a lot online, and it's more of a personality-driven sport. Like you really know basketball players where you don't football players. Like
Right.
You can have an opinion on LeBron James, the person, and LeBron James, the basketball player. Like, does anyone really have an opinion on, I don't know, Drew Brees, the person versus Drew Brees, the football player? No, they're the same guy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe even that's a big example, extreme, but maybe even like a second stringer wide receiver, like an Alan Lazard or someone like that. Nobody knows.
Yeah, but like, what do you really know about Devontae Adams? Like, it could even be the bigger players. There's like 5 people in football who people know, and even someone like Tom Brady, like you kind of know what he does in his real life, but not really.
Yeah, not really. I mean, Antonio Brown, you know everything about his life right now.
Well, he's putting it out there.
He's putting it. Are you a fan of Antonio Brown? I can't stand him. I really can't stand Antonio Brown.
I mean, it's so hard to parse what's true and what's not with him that, I mean, I'd be inclined to, I mean, football talent wise, the guy is amazing.
Yeah.
If any of these stories in his personal life are true, he might be like a disgusting human being.
Yeah, well, I would say, okay, for the accusations of whatever happened, sexual allegations, let's say that didn't happen. It's an allegation. Okay, but then you've got another thing where he assaults a guy. Okay, well, that's another thing. Okay, well, we kind of know about that. And there's another thing, he throws something off a balcony, and now he threw something at a camera. Like, I don't know exactly what happened, but it's like multiple things. So like, it's hard to believe him. Then he says, I'm going to retire from the NFL. Then he says, no, I love the NFL. Then he says, F the NFL. Then he says, fuck Big Ben. Then I love Big Ben. Like you never know what he's saying. So when they accuse him of something, I'm almost, leaning towards that it's probably correct. I just don't like the ego. I don't like him at all as a person, as a character. I'm more into the players like the Julio Joneses, the guys that, the David Johns, the guys that put their head down and work, the family guys. I'm not into these over the top characters with these major issues. I don't like the guy at all. I don't.
The off the field stuff really concerns me with him in terms of like liking him or disliking him. But I'm the exact opposite. I prefer the brash, arrogant athlete. That is my favorite type of athlete. That's what I find entertaining.
Which is weird because I'm like the brash analyst, and it's like I don't like the brash players, so I'm doing something that I don't like, which is really, really weird. They are entertaining. It does keep it exciting when you see an Odell fight with the net on the sideline or whatever it may be. But yeah, from a personal standpoint, I'd rather have a beer with a Julio Jones than like an Antonio Brown. I don't know. That's just me.
I mean, in that specific example, yes, I kind of feel bad for Odell. He's had bad injury luck. When he's good, he's such a fun player to have around. And then they're going like he got himself out of the Giants and then onto the Browns, and it was a bad situation. And then he got hurt. Then he got hurt again. Like it sucks. Like I kind of feel bad for the guy. I hope that he has one of these seasons where he's never going to have the rookie year or the second year that he had ever again. But I would like to see him come back and have a good year. Just the highlights that guy would generate were so amazing.
I'm just curious here. We're talking about these crazy players, but I know I've talked about this on a bunch of shows, but Le'Veon Bell, I don't know if you know what happened with me and him online.
Did he agree to fight you or not? I don't remember.
He didn't. He basically said I'm overweight and he wouldn't waste his time. But that's not the point. The point is he put me in a story mode and replied. And the fact that he said I'm overweight it motivates me. Now I'm not overweight. I'm in pretty decent shape. I've been working on my cardio. I got an Airdyne bike. But now you see him doing a lot of boxing videos. So I'm going to ask you, you know sports very well. You're an analyst. Now I've got a martial arts background. I wasn't the best. I had a couple MMA fights, boxing fights. I've been punched in the face. I've taken myself to the extreme physically back 10 years ago. I am older. I am slower, probably.
The answer is no chance.
Come on.
No
chance. I
chance.
could beat Le'Veon Bell.
No, absolutely not.
Well, you haven't seen me fight.
I haven't seen him fight either. It's almost like Greg Hardy going into the UFC. Guy has no fighting training. Oh, he's one of the best athletes on earth. He's going to be good.
But I don't know. He doesn't move well. You know, I don't know what it is.
When you say Le'Veon Bell doesn't move well, is that versus other running backs in the NFL or versus you?
Versus boxers, versus like he doesn't move well like as a boxer. Do you know what I mean?
But he's not training to be a boxer. If he just learned how to get his footwork down for boxing, you can't teach an elite level of athleticism. That is just something that is inherently in some people.
Right.
He has it. He is an elite 99.9 percentile athlete. It's just going to be too tough to overcome.
So, but the thing is, sometimes all it takes is one shot. It's like Rocky and Apollo. Perfect example. Rocky.
Those aren't real people.
It's the point. The point, that's a good point. But the point I'm trying to make is the mentality, the grit, the drive, the hunger. I think I've got that. I think I can beat him based on that. But again, I just got to land the shot. I got to get in there. I got to get his chin. If I get his chin with a good shot, it's anybody's fight, right?
Maybe. This is a guy who gets hit by people twice his size for a living.
But not in the chin directly. I don't know.
Not in the chin directly, true, but he has like 400-pound men falling on top of him. They need to get back up and go run again.
I had my friend John Brotherton on. He was on. Did you ever watch Fuller House with the wife or the kids? I don't know if you watched Full House. They had the new
like the new Full House. I have not seen. No.
Well, it was a new character. He was dating DJ Candace Cameron on the show. He's a character on there. He came on the Joe Kamo Show. He's like episode 3 or 4. I asked him the same question. He said he'd put his money on the athlete. When I hear stuff like that, it makes me want to box Le'Veon Bell so much more. What's it going to take for this even to happen? He'd have to kind of retire, right? Like it wouldn't happen anytime. Even if he wanted it to happen, it wouldn't happen right now if he's the NFL, correct?
Oh, absolutely. He'd have to basically go broke and there'd have to be some sort of prize pool put up. I don't see what incentive. The thing is, with any of these guys, there is no incentive to fight you. Like they can only lose. It's only negative for them. They beat you. They should beat you. They're a professional athlete. They lose. It's not a good spot for them.
What if DAZN said, "Hey, Joe, we're going to pay you $50,000, but we're going to pay Bell $2 million." But it's just not worth his time, right? It just wouldn't be worth his time, even for $1 million.
You start getting up into the multi-millions of dollars. Maybe I don't know if that's a draw for. I don't know if DAZN is going to get their money back on that pay-per-view though.
Even what's that other guy, Logan Paul or whatever? I think he tried to fight Antonio. That never even happened.
No, see, I would Logan Paul. Well, he has how big is? I don't know what's happened to him. Because I didn't really know who he was to begin with, but all I knew is like he was basically like the biggest YouTuber, right?
Yeah, he's a big YouTuber, and I think he does boxing too. I think he's fought on DAZN before. He fought some other YouTuber, but then he started calling out Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown, I think his agent probably said, "Joe, you don't want to you don't want to go down to that, right? You're a professional, top elite athlete. Let's get you back in the NFL." That's what I heard. I don't know if it's actually true, but that would have been an interesting fight to see Antonio Brown step in there. But I think it would basically lower Antonio Brown's value to go and do something like that.
I would think that once you make that leap to go agree to do that and do it, the NFL is over for you. Like you're not going back to the NFL.
Would you box Le'Veon Bell right now if they got you into shape and if the prize money was right, or no?
Absolutely not. I prefer having my brain unscrambled.
I don't know. I think he's okay. This is a whole other topic. We're going to drop this, but I can go into this, but I just don't think he is strong. He's fast. The athleticism is there, but I think if I just land him in the chin, it could happen.
But what would be you're thinking about all upside here? What's the downside to this for you? That he just beats the absolute fuck out of you? I
get tired and he pummels me.
You might, or he is very fast and there is no getting tired. You're just down.
So I'm presupposing that it actually lasts a couple minutes is what I'm doing. I got to be optimistic, Pat. You got to believe in yourself.
I think you would, I mean, you say you have the MMA training. Maybe you have a better shot in that route than a boxing match.
Right. Because if I use my feet, I can at least keep him away with my kicks, right? Or work on
Or you get a takedown, you lock him up, you can kind of press him up against the cage a little bit. That might be a better route. I don't know. I would still take Le'Veon Bell in that fight, but I think that I think getting on the inside against Bell in a boxing match, it might be a bit tough. Guy's fast.
All right, I'm not winning this debate here. I keep seeing, here's a good other, I always do this on my show, and I do this with a lot of my friends. I do a segment called Who Would Win the Fight? We already kind of did this one. It didn't go my way, but I got one for you. A top UFC fighter. Let's pick someone, right? You know UFC, right? So let's pick somebody now. Adesanya. Do you know Adesanya well?
No. I basically only know who the generic people are.
Conor McGregor.
Sure, Conor.
Okay, Conor McGregor in his prime versus Frank Dukes from Bloodsport. Who would win the fight?
Well, again, that's not a real person, but I mean, if I lean a little bit this way, you can see the Bloodsport poster right behind me.
Well, actually, to be honest, Frank Dukes was a real person, I think, but then he got, they made him a character and stuff like that. They kind of overdid him, but I think he was a real fighter.
Well, I'll go with Frank Dukes in this one.
Why? Because he could break the bottom brick.
He could do that, and he could do those splits on that really high-rise building.
Oh man, this conversation's deteriorating pretty quickly with the hypotheticals.
So, okay, I gotta ask you here. So, if you want to fight Bell, what's your height and weight?
Okay, so let's pull up his height and weight. So my height and weight right now is 5'10", 210, but I would slim down after I got into a good training camp. I'd probably be walking around at 185.
All right, so Bell's gonna be like 6'1", 210.
And I'll be 5'9.5", 5'10", 185. So,
all right, so he's got like 30 pounds on you. He's 10 years younger and a professional athlete.
But I've got the foundation of the martial arts.
Again, I think that's that's a good base to have. But at the same time, like I can go out and practice. Listen, if I want to start training for the NFL right now, I could have great fundamentals. But you could take Russell Westbrook, who doesn't play football, and just be like, yeah, you sign him to be a tight end, and he's going to be in the NFL, and I'm not.
The problem is, even when I get to the point where my brand is big enough, which it will be probably 3 to 5 years from now, when I'm on the mainstream, and then this fight could actually happen, when I actually say it's going to happen, I make a phone call to Zone, and we actually make it happen, which is like 4 or 5 years out, I'll be well into my mid 40s at that point. So like at that point, it would be harder for me. And he's probably going to be in his man prime, in his mid 30s, stuff like that. It would be harder. But again, you see guys like Michael Tyson, who's having a fight. It's Michael Tyson, right? He is
having a fight. He was also one of the best heavyweights of all time.
He's 53, right? So it would be entertaining, that's for sure. I think I'd make it entertaining, though. I really do. Even if I had to run.
This all hinges on you getting even bigger than you are right now. You need to become like a legit, at least B-list celebrity. Yes. And then Bell's career needs to fall off a bit, and you guys can meet in the middle somewhere.
That's what we're working towards. Well, it's actually, if you look at Bell's stats, it's been falling off significantly over the past year and a half. It keeps at this rate, it could be sooner than we think.
Yeah, but then he's just a guy who's in really good shape with millions of dollars who's 31 years old.
So listen, so what's next for Pat Mayo? You've got the Pat Mayo Experience. You've got this big brand. You've got this big deal with DraftKings. You're doing good things. What is the next mountain for you?
So I've launched, like I said, I launched this channel, Mayo Media Network, and I'm not entirely sure. I want to, it hosts my show, get to own that. I think that owning whatever you do is so key and critical in this business in this day and age, that a lot of people find themselves in a lot of problems when they don't own their own products. So just owning the content is big for me. And then having this network and trying to find different distribution levels, but it's creating new shows, which really gets me going. Like, I started in this, like when I started in television, I hosted my own show, but I was also producing a bunch of shows, and I don't really do that anymore. I only produce one other one that I would like to develop some new content, just, whether it's sports content, whether it's, entertainment content. I think it all can kind of live on my channel. Just, it doesn't need to involve me. I would like to go out and find some talented people and create shows around them. And hopefully, I don't want to say I want their shows to be bigger than mine. I would always prefer my show be the biggest that goes out there, but I really enjoy trying to elevate people up in the business, and I've tried to do that a lot. Some successful, some unsuccessful, but taking some more shots at it. And I think this network really gives me some room to play around with in terms of trying to develop new talent, develop new voices, and different concepts of shows. Like I have such a good technical background of actually producing the content. Like here are cheaper ways that you can film things to make it look really good. One thing that I find in this space a lot, especially in the fantasy space or the gambling space, is that a lot of people's videos just look like shit. Like they look really bad and hack. And at least I have the technical background to know how to elevate it just above that, whether it's through different cameras, different lighting, different tricks, set dressing, that kind of thing. That I think that we can put out a high quality visual product, but none of that matters if you don't have the personalities behind it who are somewhat engaging.
Yeah, it's tough to be everything. So if I'm looking at Pat Mayo 5 years down the road and you want the world to know you, what do you want? Like I'm right now known as a fantasy guy. That's why I created the Joe Kamo Show, because I want people to know me and have these type of conversations, know that I do have a family, that I'm a human being, and also have amazing interviews and discussions like you, because I love doing this. When I'm in this zone right now, the world disappears. Like this is my passion. This is like Le'Veon Bell running for a big 100-yard dash. Like when you're in the zone, you're focused, you're kind of in your zone. So I love doing this. But like, how do you want to be remembered? Like when I think of Pat Mayo, what am I thinking?
I mean, I don't really think about that kind of thing. Like 5 years from now, if I could be retired, that seems like it's kind of nice. I love doing my show. I really do. Would I, in 5 years, if I had the ability, would I do it? I mean, I do 9 shows a week right now, so I do more than one a day. I'd probably scale that back a little bit, to be perfectly honest with you. Just take out some of the grind. Although I love the grind, eventually, as we were talking about, you're gonna get burnt out. And then, like, I've been doing this almost 10 years straight now. I could see myself easing back into a bit more of a, instead of 9 shows a week, maybe it's 4 shows a week, and I'm producing other people's content. Like I think there's a certain level of notoriety that you don't want to get to. That seems to really backfire on people as it starts affecting their personal life. I think you want to get up. The most valuable spot to be in life is to get up to that point, then take 1/2 step back and just live in that area where you're known enough that you can make a living off of it, but you're not so known that people like harass you in your day-to-day life.
Right. And I kind of want to be, I want to grow this as big as I can in the sports, and especially Joe Kamo Show. I just had to do it because I had to stray away from just being the fantasy guy. I guess we're both building our own empires, and yeah, I wish you nothing but the best. I love the conversation with you, man. You're witty, you're funny. I don't agree with your Le'Veon Bell take, though. I don't.
Well, you can go die on that hill, potentially literally, if that fight ever goes and happens. But hey, listen, man, this is a part of it. You got your take, you're sticking to your take, and then people are going to come after you, and then other people will defend you, and then people will pass it around, and it's free marketing for you. It's genius.
It is. And again, I'm burning some bridges with some players with all this stuff, but I just speak the truth. If they suck that week, all I'm saying, Pat, is that you guys suck this week. I'm not saying that you suck as a person, as a human. I'm not calling you a piece of shit. I'm just saying that you suck in fantasy this week, and they take it so seriously. Madison, Hardman, Leonard Fournette. How many people have got, like Le'Veon Bell? There's multiple people that dove into my comments. Austin Eckler was another guy. And I'm pretty much right about these guys. Le'Veon Bell, I said he's done nothing since the Steelers. Sure enough, he's done nothing. Eckler, I said he's not a full true workhorse running back. Sure enough, they tried to work him as a workhorse running back. He gets hurt. So it's like, some of the stuff I say, not all of it is actually pretty accurate. Odell, he sucks. Like, he not really sucks like as a player, but he sucks. He's done nothing in fantasy for 4 years. And I've been right 4 years in a row. So, it's just like they take it personally because I think they know I'm partially right,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not one to go mention players or anything like that. I find it to be a bit déclassé. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, I know. It is what it is, though. I'm pretty open, and it is what it is. I don't really care what they think. I know it's kind of
well, if you don't care, you go do you. It was like even that Chubb thing. Like that Chubb thing cost me a big bet. I had Cleveland -3.5. So if Chubb had just scored that touchdown, it would have been really good for me. Although I'm thinking of it from his perspective as that's the right move to win the game. It's like Kyler taking the knee on the 2-point conversion. That is the sense of their goal is to win games and be there, not to help your fantasy team. It's not.
But he screwed a lot of people's spreads. I mean, a lot of people had Browns to cover. I think they were a 4-point favorite.
I had them at 3.5, and they score that touchdown. They cover the 3.5. He doesn't score the touchdown, and they take the knee. They lose, but he's not trying to cover the spread. He's trying to win the game.
All I care about is what my fantasy people want and what Joe wants. That's it. That's all that matters.
I mean, And listen, there's a lot of people who agree with you on that.
But then again, they care about what they want. They care about their team, what they want. So that's the difference of opinion right there, right?
Well, I guess not really, because I mean they're getting paid to win football games, and that is the proper move to win the football game. If you run out of bounds, the other team literally cannot come back and win. You score a touchdown, that's still on the table. They still have a modicum of win probability at that point.
But I want to win my fantasy week. I know it's not.
That's fine. You know what? You should have made better picks.
I know that's true. I actually stayed away from Nick Chubb this year. I genuinely did. So far, it's paid off. But again, we'll see how
let's talk about this just before we go for a second. What a devastating year.
Yes.
If you picked like inside the top 5, everyone just got hurt, or Ezekiel Elliott, who's just no good.
And I played it safe. So I play I try to belt and suspenders. So I look at what goes up must come down. So everyone on McCaffrey, I said, let's stay away from McCaffrey because the probability of him repeating that year or him getting injured is pretty high because it was such a Cinderella perfect year. So let's go with Saquon Barkley, where I felt a little safer. What happens to him? He's gone, right? It just sucks, man. Everybody in the first round, minus Devontae Adams now is kind of on a tear. He got hurt too. Everybody.
Yeah. So the only really good one has been Kamara. Kamara's been really good.
Kamara.
Adams missed a few weeks. Henry has been he's had the giant weeks, but then he's had the down weeks too. The McCaffrey thing's interesting. I mean, Delvin Cook has been amazing. He missed the one game, but he's basically having the McCaffrey year from last year. If it wasn't for the injuries, though, the way I kind of looked at McCaffrey was, even if he regressed, it's the injuries were really the only thing that could derail him. Because if you just took off 20% of his overall numbers from last year, he'd still be the running back one. That he had that built-in regression, yet still would be the running back one. Yeah. Cook is just over his skis right now. So good. So he's not going to continue to put up 35 points a game, but even if he starts putting up 22 points a game, that's still going to be the best.
Right. I mean, I don't know if Cook's going to finish the season though. I don't see him finishing the season.
Just look at all the injuries though. How can you predict who's going to stay healthy and who's not? Everyone's getting hurt this year.
Everyone's getting hurt. So Pat, man, thanks for being on. What I'm going to do when I find somebody though that actually agrees that I can beat Le'Veon Bell, I'm going to tag you in that video on Instagram. I need to find that.
I like it. I want to find now you're going to have people lining up to get in your good graces and get their profile up on your Instagram feed. You're just embracing the sycophants who agree with you.
Well, even my partner here, Tim, the bald guy, actually came out and said Le'Veon Bell would win. I'm going to ask my wife. I mean, that could be a good biased opinion maybe, but either way.
I would, if I asked my wife, she would tell me to give my fucking head a shake.
Listen, you're a pretty lean guy. Don't underestimate your fighting ability here. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 5'8", 160 pounds. I don't think I'm going to do much damage against 6'1", 220 Le'Veon Bell.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you being on. I had some good laughs here, laughing at myself. It was entertaining. So thanks, Matt. So how do they find you, man, for the people that don't know? Pretty easy.
PME, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, Mayo Media Network, on YouTube, and the Pat Mayo Experience, wherever you download podcasts. Basically, if you just follow my Twitter feed, I will bombard you with spam about where my work is.
All right, Pat. Thanks, guys, for being here. I hope you guys enjoyed the craziness. We'll talk soon.